Rupaya Swamine Tapaharine. So, the subject of discussion for today is devotion, the royal road to the divine. Devotion is the royal road to the divine. Bhakti is the royal road to mukti. You have to use the Sanskrit words. Devotion is bhakti. Divine is freedom, mukti. We shall see how bhakti helps us to reach the divine. And what is bhakti? What are the characteristics or qualities of a true devotee of the Lord? Why it is important to cultivate bhakti? We shall dwell on these points a little. What is bhakti? What is devotion? Love of God. Why to love God? We love so many things, right? We love money. We love name and fame. We love our relationships. There are so many other things to love. But you will find that everything will disappoint you in the end. Because everything will bring you only momentary or transitory results or fruits. Nothing brings you eternal fruit. Nothing brings you in strain, immortality. Nothing brings you eternal peace and joy except your love of God. Because God is immortal. God is eternal. God is bliss personified. If you turn your love towards God, because we all have the capacity to love, because we love so many things in the world. Okay, we want so many things, we long for so many things, we love so many things. So all that capacity for wanting and capacity for longing, that capacity for love that we have, we need to give a right direction. That right direction is the divine. Because He truly reciprocates. Everything else we get only a small fruit. If you want the highest fruit, then actually you have to turn your attention to the divine. If you love God, He truly reciprocates and He gives you the highest. What is the highest? Immortality. What can be greater than that? What can be higher than that? Right? Everybody is seeking for happiness only. Everybody wants to remain in peace and eternal happiness. That actually is the longing of every creature on the planet Earth. Not just humans, even every subhuman species also wants that only. But we don't know where it is. So in the beginning we search for that peace and happiness through material things, through our mundane relationships. But we get disappointed. Because only when you get disappointed you will turn your attention to the divine, right? May not be in this birth. For some people it will happen after some births. The sooner the better for everybody. So why to love God? Because He truly reciprocates. He gives you the highest. And devotion is a privilege given only to the human species. Other species, they are all there. N number of species are there in this universe. Will they be able to love God? Not consciously, for sure. Only we human beings can turn our emotion towards the divine and make it into bhakti, devotion, true love of God. And then we can enjoy the sweetness of it. And that brings in its train, in the end, immortality, the highest fruit that you can ever aspire for. So, devotion is a privilege given by the Lord to human species. A special privilege. We need to make use of that. Okay? We all have the capacity to love God. But we don't make use of that capacity. So, because it brings the highest fruit, the devotion actually is the highest wealth at the same time. Today, but we don't consider it as wealth. Our idea of wealth is only physical things. But this is the true wealth, because it brings the highest thing. So in that way, devotion is the greatest wealth that we can aspire for. So in that sense, devotion is the greatest privilege that we human beings have. Love of God is the privilege that Almighty has given to us. We can love Him, we can relate to Him, and then we can experience that sweetness. In the end, if we attain to the highest of that sweetness, the last point of that sweetness, it is immortality. The lover, the process of love, and the object being loved, the divine God, become one. That becoming one with the beloved actually is the highest end. Whether it is jnana or bhakti, the end is the same. But there are some fundamental differences between knowledge and bhakti. The advantage of bhakti is it is both the means and also the end. It is an end in itself. Whereas in jnana, the path of knowledge, you use knowledge to reach the goal. The goal is the divine. Goal is freedom. Goal is mukti. But knowledge becomes the means to reach the end. But whereas in bhakti, there is no end. Mukti is not the end. Bhakti is actually both means and end. If you attain bhakti, you are in mukti. If you attain devotion, you will get the divine. That's all by default. That you don't have to aspire for the divine. Not that I will cultivate devotion, then I will get the divine. You have devotion and you are with the divine already. That's why bhakti becomes superior to jnana in that sense. It's both the means and an end in itself. Whereas knowledge or jnana is only a means, the end is the divine. So that's why in that way bhakti is superior. What will be the attitude of a jnani or a man who is following the path of knowledge to reach the divine? And the attitude of a devotee, the individual who is actually following the path of love to reach the Lord. So jnani says, I exist because of the divine. Because he uses this faculty of discrimination and understands how this piece of life functions. Our mind functions, our buddhi functions, our indriya senses the function, our breath happens, our heart is palpitating. All this is happening because of the Atman, because of consciousness. So I exist because of the Lord. I exist because of consciousness. The jnani understands this. It's the right understanding. Whereas bhakta, he doesn't consider it like that. He says that I shelter God in my heart. I provide Him the home in my heart. I carry God. Whereas jnani thinks that Lord carries me, a bhakta thinks that I carry God. I have provided Him shelter in my heart. I have provided residence to the Lord in my heart. So I am carrying God actually. That's how actually a devotee feels. So that's why there is only one way that you can enslave God, that is through bhakti. We all know that we are in bondage. Yes, we are in Maya. We are struggling to become free. All the suffering is because of the bondage that we are in. What is that bondage? We are attached to this body and mind. So we are trying to liberate ourselves from this attachment so that we would become free forever. That is mukti, that is nirvana, that is kaivalya. So to reach that state actually is the goal. So now we are in bondage. We all know that. So who put us in this bondage? We all say that we have this law of karma theory. You yourself have put yourself in bondage. You did something and that's why actually you have come into this mundane or material existence. You have come to this embodied existence. The very fact that you wear a body and a mind, it's not your choice, right? It's not your choice. You are into the world, you have come. So how have you come? When you discriminate, you understand that probably last birth I had an embodiment. Okay, I did some karma, I performed certain actions. Those actions actually brought me this kind of embodiment, this kind of body and mind. So if you just keep analyzing like that, discriminating like that, you find that. So in the beginning, how did the creation happen at all? Right? The universe has come into existence, and then along with the universe, we all have come into existence. That means creation has happened, or at least is projected. Who has projected? Who has done the creation? Definitely the Lord. We have not done it. Sorry. So in our Dharma, the idea is that Lord is sporting with the universe. He has created the universe and he is sporting with His universe. He has done the creation or projection, definitely. We have not done it. So we are in bondage. So you can say that God has put us in bondage. Right? He has brought it into the world for His place sake. And we have come into this bondage. So there is a way, because as God has brought us into this bondage and making us suffer, you can actually bind the Lord. You can create bondage for Him. How can you do that? Through bhakti, through devotion. What happens in devotion? Lord becomes the highest state of devotion. He becomes your slave. Now He has put us in bondage. We are His slaves, helplessly suffering, right? Helplessly suffering because of His creative instinct, right? He has created us and then He is making us suffer. Because if you take this theory for true, if it holds good, then you need to understand there is a way we can enslave God. If I am allowed to use the word, we can bind Him. God will become the servant of the devotee. That is the beauty of devotion. There are a number of instances actually in our scriptures where the Lord actually has served His devotees. So we have actually, there are Puranic stories, plenty of stories in Srimad Bhagavatam. You know the story of Ambarisha, how Lord became the slave of His devotee. You know the story of Bali. The Lord actually in Patala, He guards His devotee's palace and He says, I will be your guard. Okay, you rule the Patala and I will be your guard. After Bali had submitted himself completely to the Lord, God actually said, I will be your, protector there. I will actually guard your palace. And you see the story of Ambarisha. The Lord says, I cannot withdraw this Sudarshan Chakra, this maze. You go and ask only my devotee Ambarisha. The Durvasa, when he created that Daitya and released it on Ambarisha to kill him, the reverse had happened. Okay, Sudarshan Chakra came to protect the devotee. And Durvasa was running from pillar to post. He first went to Kailasa, and then the Lord Shiva said, I cannot stop Lord Sudarshan Chakra, it's not in my power. Then he went to Brahma. Brahma also said, I am helpless. Then ultimately he goes to Vishnu, Vaikunta, and there Lord says, you have erred against my devotee. You don't understand the power of my devotee. I cannot withdraw, he says. It's the Lord's weapon. And he said, I cannot. You just go and pray to Him and fall at His feet. If He wills, something will happen. So ultimately, that means what? Lord has become the slave of His devotee. Ultimately, Durvasa goes to Ambarisha and falls at his feet. And then actually Ambarisha prays and the Sudarshana, the discus of the Lord actually disappears. That is the power of the devotees. That is the power. You can enslave the Lord. The Kuchela story, the story of Sri Dharma, also same thing happened. He took 2 fistfuls of the flattened rice and he was about to take the 3rd fistful from Kuchela, the greatest devotee. So Rukmini stops the Lord. You don't take, Lord, enough. Alam. Whatever you have taken is alam, enough. If you take more, actually she knew what would happen. Had he taken more, Lord would have become a slave of Sri Dharma. He would have left Dwaraka and he would have come to Sri Dhamapuri. And then, that is actually the power of devotion. You can enslave God. In the saints of Maharashtra, many of you know the stories of saints of Maharashtra. There are wonderful stories, the legends. I don't think they are unreal. Don't think that the people we are today, we are living in 21st century, we are more rational, we are more scientific, and the people who lived, who were contemporaries of those saints in 13th century, 14th century, they were dumb and they had no wisdom. Not that. The human intelligence is more or less the same all the time. And they had actually subjected those devotees to the utmost scrutiny. And those other people who had recorded these legends, they saw with their physical eyes those miracles happening. That's how actually it has come down from a generation to generation as legends, and afterwards they were noted down. You know the story of Janabai, a great Maharashtra saint, woman saint, in the 13th century. She was a great devotee of Panduranga. So, when she was a 5 years old girl, her father left her in that Pandharpur, that temple. And she said, I will be here only. I will not come with you, father. Then father said, no, how you will stay a 5-year-old girl? Anyway, when I grow up, you will marry me off and then actually you will send me out of your home, right? So I don't want. I want to be here only. I want to be with the Lord. And then father actually became helpless because the girl was very stubborn. And then he left her there. And then actually she comes to Namdev's house and there actually she takes the profession of servant. Actually, she becomes a maid of that family, where that other saint, Namdev, was there. And as maid, actually, what she was required to do, she would be doing this, all the dishwashing and washing clothes, making cow dung cakes for her master, and doing cooking, all these things she was doing. The Lord would go and help her every day Because she was a small girl, a great devotee of the Lord. Namdev could see it actually, Vittala coming every day and helping the girl. Every day he would see that. One day there was a gale, there was a storm. The roof actually was blown away. And the Lord actually was holding the Sudarshan Chakra to protect his devotee Namdev and also Janabai. And both of them they saw. And he was repairing the hut himself. Vittala, Panduranga Vittala. These are all the instances where actually Lord actually has become the slave of his devotees. And he would come when she was grinding that jor floor. Lord would come and give this his helping hand to her. He would help her and actually in washing the dishes. He would help in cooking and everything. One day, the Lord actually went from the temple to help Janabai. And she was grinding the jor floor. And he helped her. While coming back, the Lord actually brought her shawl, her blanket, a torn blanket of Janabai. Where it was cold, he just picked up her blanket and came back to the temple. And he left his jewelry there. While helping her, he removed his jewelry and kept aside. But he did not pick that jewelry up when he was going back. Rather, because he picked up her torn blanket and went back to the temple. Next day morning when the priests opened the temple, what they saw? The jewelry was not there in the body of the Lord, the image. And they were stunned and shocked. This torn kambal was there. Then they inquired, whose kambal is this? Whose blanket is this? Ultimately, they traced it and they found it is Janabai's blanket. And then they accused her, you have stolen. Then they found the jewelry also inside Namdev's house. Then they accused her of stealing the jewelry of the Lord and they wanted to put her to death. That was the test ultimately. She passed. So what happened? The last day miracle happened actually. She was about to be hanged and that rope actually turned into a garland. The rope in front of the eyes of so many people. Publicly she was about to be hanged. The people saw the miracle. And today actually we are, rational people, we may not believe this, but the legend has come in 700 years at the back that has happened. Our Abhangas are even today sung everywhere in Maharashtra. So these miracles, they do happen because once you touch the spirit and once you touch the consciousness, what you think impossible now, because we are actually bound by the five senses now. Anything that is beyond the five senses is unreal for us. It can't be logically explained. Your logic only within the realm of the five senses, within the realm of your buddhi. Or your buddhi is small, but we don't understand that. But once you transcend that buddhi, impossible things will happen. So Mathur Babu, Sri Ramakrishna's mentor, Sri Ramakrishna's Risaddhar, who would provide the things, basic things for Sri Ramakrishna. One day he argued with Sri Ramakrishna. He said the whole universe is actually running according to a law. There is a niyama, there is a rule. Everybody has to follow the rule, including the creator. And Sri Ramakrishna disputed that. All these laws are created by the Lord. Okay, he can undo them also. Right? Let's say the earth is revolving around the sun in a clockwise direction. And the Lord can make it revolve in an anti-clockwise direction also. It is possible for him because after all he is the creator of the universe. He is the maker of the law. He can break it and he can create new laws also. Then the Mathur Babu argued with Sri Ramakrishna and said, actually this hibiscus plant gives red flowers. Can it actually yield white flowers? Can white flowers come on this plant? If Lord wills, it will happen, Sri Ramakrishna said. And the next day, Sri Ramakrishna called him and showed both the red flowers and white flowers on the tree. He just showed it, did a miracle and showed him to Mathur Babu to make him believe. But he would do it very rarely. Sri Ramakrishna never did perform such miracles because people would get attracted only to the miracles and then they want to acquire siddhis and powers so that I want to show to others. That's why true saints, they never exhibit these powers, though they were capable of it. And Sri Ramakrishna abhorred all these Ashtasiddhis, and you can become the smaller than the smallest, you can become the bigger than the biggest. And also he warned his disciples, nobody should go for the psychic powers. Once you become one with this cosmic mind, you can just do anything that you want. Whatever I want you to see, I will make you see. Here is something black actually is there. I will show you to actually white for you. So that kind of power they will get. That kind of power they will get. So these miracles had happened in homes of so many saints, not only in Janabais, and many Maharashtra saints, not only just Maharashtra saints, and the saints, many such miracles had happened. Lord became their slave. If you just take another example, another Maharashtra saint, the Gora Kumbar, you might have read his story also, a potter. The Janabai was also born in a low caste. They all became great saints, they all became great devotees of the Lord, the power of Pandharpur, the power of Vittala. And day and night, she would actually, Janabai, she would chant divine name. Whatever she would do, Pandharpur, Vittala, 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 Purandara, 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 that Nama, Japa would continuously would go. From small girl onwards, from 50 year onwards, actually, she was doing that, continuous Japa. Work was going on side, and also Japa, repetition of God's name, also was going parallelly. And one day, when all these, some saints actually, including the Jnandev and other group of saints, they were on their way to pilgrimage from North India, Ramananda and others had come, and they stopped in Pandharpur. And that time they came to Namdev's home. By then actually Namdev was quite popular also. And Janabai was quarreling with her neighbor over these cow dung cakes, because both of them pasted the cow dung cakes to the same wall. This is mine, this is mine. They were quarreling. This happened actually. What I pasted, what you pasted, there was some confusion. Janabai was quarreling with the neighboring woman and saying that these cow dung cakes are mine. And the other woman was arguing that they're mine. And the argument was going on, and the saints were there. So then I asked Janabai, what is the proof that, these cow dung cakes are yours? He said, when I was making the cow dung cake, I was uttering God's name. You just actually take the cow dung cake and just hold it to your ear. You will hear Panduranga's name. And you just tested actually. They tested. They took that cow dung cake and held it near the ear, and they heard the cow dung cake saying Panduranga, Panduranga, Panduranga. Then they decided, and then these three cow dung cakes belonged to her. That was the intensity of devotion she had. In Gora Kumbha's story also similar story. Very beautiful story, very inspiring story. Why I am saying, to cultivate devotion, we all know that actually we have to cultivate love for God. We have to love God, but we don't know how to love God. What are we to do to love God? How are we to develop that love for God in our heart? You have to listen, you have to read the stories of the devotees of the Lord. Whether the modern devotees, historical devotees, or the devotees mentioned in Puranas. Both the stories are equally efficacious and equally powerful. There is potency in those stories. Whoever reads the Prahlada story repeatedly, that devotion will be kindled in your heart for sure. No doubt about that. The devotion will be kindled, because the Lord will be immensely pleased with you, and He will shower His grace. If you read His Leelas directly, He may not shower His grace, but if you read the stories of His devotees, He would be immensely pleased, and He will kindle the devotion in your heart. In Gora Kumbhar's life also the same thing had happened. You know the story actually, a miracle had happened. How the miracle happened? He got married to one lady by name Shanti, and they had a child. The child was a toddler of 3 or 4 year old. One day she was going to the nearby river to fetch water, and she told Gora Kumbhar, so you take care of the toddler. He was busy actually making his pots. He was preparing mud to make pots. There was a small ditch there, actually put the mud, and they were actually making the mud for making pots. With his feet he was doing, in earlier days, how they would make pots. You have to make the mud very soft, then only you can make pots. So with his feet he was doing. While he was doing that, he was chanting the name of Vittala. And he was in such divine inebriation. He was in a kind of trance. He was not noticing things. He was just doing his action. Mechanically, the work was going on, and the chanting of divine name also was going on. Vittala, 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 Vittala. He was saying actually. Like a man was unmatta. He was in a kind of trance. He was in divine inebriated state. He was oblivious of the circumstances around him. And this toddler, because they do kids, if you just leave like that, they don't stay at that particular place, because after all it was not a doll. So they will crawl here and there. So the toddler crawled into the ditch, but this Gora Kumbhar did not notice that. His own child. So he got stuck in the mud, but Gora Kumbhar was, completely in a trance. He was in divine inebriated state. So he trampled his own son to death. But he was oblivious. He was just chanting name and going on like that. Then his wife Shanti, she returned. She brought the water back, and she put the pot down and looked around for a kid. He was not available. He looked around here and there, and then they saw the mud that is stained with blood. And then she accused her husband and also Vittala. She went on scolding Vittala and Gorakumbar got annoyed. She accused Gorakumbar and also Vittala. All the time you are like a madman, say Vittala, Vittala. You just see what this Vittala did. Our only one son actually. He's dead. He's no more. Then actually Gorakumbar said, it's all will of Vittala. What is there to weep? What is there to lament? Okay. He tried to console her. But after all, a mother, it's impossible to console, right? She was inconsolable. Her only kid died. And mothers, they know the pain because they bear in her womb the kids, right? And Gorakumbar was tried to console her, but did not happen. And then she, in that anger, because after all, it was natural for mother to become angry with her kind of irresponsible husband, she thought. And they said that you should not, I swear by the name of Vittala, and you should not touch me in my life. You should never touch me hereafter in my life. Yeah, you took the oath in the name of Vittala. Fine, Gorakumbar said. He never touched her thereafter. And after a few years, and then she started repenting for her vow. Because now you cannot have children. Because you yourself had taken the oath. And Gorakumbar insisted that you have taken oath in the name of Vittala, and my touching you will never happen in life. Okay. And then she went to her father's house, and this is what happened. The only kid died, and afterwards in that rage actually I took this oath, and now Gora says that the oath cannot be broken because you have taken it in the name of Vittala. And then his father, just to console his daughter, another daughter he has, the second daughter daughter actually, Rami, and she was also given in marriage to Gorakumbar. And when he was giving his second daughter to Gorakumbar, he just told one thing, his father-in-law, to Gorakumbar. You treat her like the way you treat Shanti, your first wife, my daughter, male daughter. Gorakumbar said, yes. So afterwards, he was not touching the second wife also. He said, I cannot touch you because your father told me that I should treat you the way I treat your sister. Then, now actually the problem, the Shanti went and asked his father to give her sister also in marriage to her husband, Gorakumbar, in the hope of actually having a successor, having a kid. But now, as his father told Gorakumbar, his son-in-law, that you should treat my second daughter the way you treat my first daughter, and he had agreed for that. As he was not touching his first daughter, first wife and second wife also, he had decided not to touch. That was the promise he had made to his father-in-law. And then one day, then they thought actually, he was a frivolous devotee, they thought. Forcefully, they took his hand and dragged on to their bosom. That was sufficient for Gorakumbar. He thought actually they had broken the pledge. He chopped off his both hands. And they were shocked. To the astonishment and to the horror of these two ladies, he chopped off his both hands. You have taken a oath in the name of Vittala. Okay? You told that my body should not touch your body. Now you forcefully dragged my hands and put it on your bosom. And it was sacrilege. You went back on your pledge. And you can't break your pledge like this. That actually the oath that had been taken in the name of Vittala. And then he chopped off his both hands. To the horror of these two women. And then, okay, the days were rolling on. They say, because after two hands actually were not there, now how can you make pots? They said, Lord Vittala and Rukmini, they joined actually as two laborers in that home, and they used to make pots. Lord himself and his divine consort joined as two laborers, and they were helping Gorakumbar in making pots because he had no hands. And afterwards they went to Pandharpur one day, Ekadasi, the Ashada Ekadasi is a very sacred day. In Pandharpur, lakhs of devotees gather even today and chant Vittalan name, that Varkari Sampradaya. So they continuously chant Lord's name. They congregate in thousands and chant the name of Vittala. And so they one day, along with his two wives, they went there because Namdev was singing in the courtyard of the temple. And they all had joined. Namdev and other sons also were there. Jnanadev were there. Muktabai. There were other saints also were there. Namdev asked them actually to join him actually in divine singing, and he asked them to raise their hands and clap. And when Gorakumbar also, he just rose his hands because he became, he was not conscious that actually he had no hands. He tried to lift his stumps, the hands became stumps. He tried to lift and then he got his full hands back. The miracle had happened. in the presence of all the devotees. Devotees saw his half chopped off hands, and also they saw his hands growing, new hands actually came. Normal, it became normal. He became whole of part. And then actually when she saw this miracle, the first wife Shanti, she prayed to Vittala for scolding him, when she first saw toddler dead. And she accused Vittala also because Vittala was indifferent and because of Vittala only all this had happened. And she repented and then prayed to the divine, please give my child back. And another miracle happened. And she saw just few feet away a toddler crawling towards her. And she picked up the toddler and took the toddler in her bosom, her kid. 2 miracles happened in the presence of so many devotees. But that is not an important thing. You just imagine, for the sake of pledge, Gora Kumbha chopped off his hands. With that much of faith in divine. We have taken a word, you have given a word means, and you have to keep by it. They had that much of strength means miracles would happen. Right? Impossible would happen. So there are so many such incidents in the lives of these devotees where actually Lord bent to serve them. Lord became their slave as it were. Why Arjuna? He was not such a great devotee in my opinion, in my estimation. Arjuna is a devotee of the Lord, but Lord became his charioteer, right? Lord actually became his charioteer. The menial job he had taken up for the sake of his devotee, just to protect Arjuna. There are so many other devotees who are far greater, far higher than Arjuna in terms of bhakti. Sri Ramakrishna used to tell a beautiful story. One day actually Arjuna developed a little pride. And he considered him as the greatest devotee of the Lord. And Krishna sensed this. And he wanted to teach a lesson. And Arjuna went and Krishna and told that. So, Krishna, is there a devotee who is greater than me? I think no, he did not tell, but just Lord detected it and wanted to make him understand there are devotees who are far superior to Arjuna. And they were going, and there, in disguise of course, they are going there, they saw a Brahmana, a poor Brahmana. He was eating dry grass. He was a very emaciated man. He was eating dry grass. And by the side of him, actually, he kept a sword, a dazzling sword. And this spectacle actually amused Arjuna. And he was eating dry grass. Then they could understand why he was eating dry grass. He was so kind and so compassionate. He would not even actually live grass. Green grass he would not eat. According to him, green grass has life. So if I eat, actually, I am doing violence. So he would eat only dry grass. That was the level of non-violence he was practicing, that Brahmana was practicing. And Arjuna got amused. How a man who is practicing this degree of non-violence, keeps a sword by his side. And Krishna, okay, you go and ask him. Arjuna goes and asks him. So you seem to be a man of great piety. You seem to be a very non-violent man. You don't want to even hurt even ants. You don't want to even eat green grass because that would carry life there. Then why are you keeping this dazzling sword? He said, I want to kill 4 people. 4 rascals, I want to teach a lesson to them. You would say. Arjuna was stunned, stunned. Who are those people? You seem to be such non-violent and such a peace-loving man, and you're carrying a sword and you wanted to. The 4. The first one is Narada. I want to kill him. Why? What mistake did he do? That Narada, all the time he disturbs my Lord. Okay? And that Veena, Mahati, constantly says Narayana, 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 Narayana. So how can my Lord sleep in Vaikuntha? Right? 24 hours he does that. So how my Lord would be able to sleep? He doesn't even the sense to understand that he would be disturbing my Lord by constantly calling him every minute. Can't he stop at least in the night? How my Lord would sleep if you constantly call him on like this, Narayana, Narayana, Narayana? It would disturb him because the devotee was calling that you would have to attend. So that Narada is actually, if I come across him actually, I will teach him a lesson, he said. Okay. Then who is that second person? The second person is that lady Draupadi. So said, then what mistake did she do? What offense she has committed? Why? He said, she made my Lord eat her leavings, eat that impure food. When did this happen? When that Kamyaka Vana, when Durvasa went along with the disciples and asked for food, there was nothing left in the home. They just now Pandavas had finished their meal, there was nothing in the home. And Durvasa went along with the disciples. So because Durvasa, he would become angry very quickly and to incur the wrath of a sage, because Draupadi was terribly afraid. And then actually she goes to Krishna. Says, "Oh Lord, save me from this predicament, difficult situation." Now Durvasa has come along with his disciples, and we ask for food. If we don't serve him food, he will become angry and he will give a curse. He may curse me. I have nothing here now. To cook also there is no time and no ingredients also there. Then the Lord said, "Okay, you just see in the pot that you have eaten, okay, if there is any food is remnant is there." She goes back and then a little food was remaining there. That food she gives to Krishna and Krishna takes that, and afterwards Durvasa doesn't come for meals because Durvasa felt actually full. Because tasmin tuste jagat tustaha. Because the Lord had eaten, because everybody else is satisfied. So there was no capacity, there was no actually place in his stomach to eat anything. So Durvasa and his disciples were afraid actually if we go to Draupadi, she would serve a sumptuous feast and we would not be able to take anything. Then it would be embarrassing for us and for her also both. And so they leave the place, they don't come. Because Krishna had taken that morsel. But this Brahmana is saying that morsel is an impure food, that is, because that was the leavings of the Pandavas. They had eaten the food and that was the remaining thing. And that she made my Lord eat that. That's why I want to teach Draupadi a lesson. Well, Arjuna was taken aback. So who is that third person who offended you? Then he said, why that Prahlada? Prahlada? Arjuna said, such a great devotee of the Lord. The Lord actually rescued him. So many times, such a great devotee, always actually is being rescued by the Lord because his father is tormenting him. And then he said, yes, because of him, my Lord had to, get trampled by the elephants. Because of him, actually, my Lord had to bear the poison of the snakes. Because of him, actually, my Lord had to bear the pain of, getting burnt in a cauldron. Because every time, actually, Hiranyakashipu put him to all this kind of trouble, Lord had to rescue Prahlada. Why he would utter my Lord's name and would trouble my Lord? Okay, he should not have done that if he has true devotion. The three persons are over. Who is that fourth one? Arjuna asked. Why that Arjuna? He said. That Arjuna is that fourth, person actually whom I want to teach a lesson. What did he do? How dare that Arjuna? He makes my Lord his charioteer. He makes my Lord actually run his horses. He makes my Lord actually do that menial job for him. What do you think? What he thinks of my Lord? So these four people I want to teach a lesson. This Brahmana was telling. Then because they are all in disguise, then Krishna says, now you have seen the devotion of this man. Then Arjuna understands, this is true devotion, where you don't want to trouble your Lord. Who is a devotee? A devotee cannot be a grumbler. A grumbler cannot become a devotee. A devotee is totally satisfied with what he or she has got. What I need, the Lord will give you. You have 100% faith in that. So you only want to cultivate devotion for him. There is no barter, it's not a trade. Oh Lord, you give me this, I will give you that. That is no bhakti at all. That is not true love. Devotee will never trade in bhakti. If you trade in bhakti, you are not a bhakta. You are not a devotee. Okay? Many times we go to temples. What we do there? Oh Lord, give me this, I will give you that. I will do this for you. What do you think actually he needs? The owner of the universe? And what do you think actually you can give him, the owner of the universe? What we can give? Nothing. So he will yield only to bhakti, to devotion. Unconditional love, devotion means. You don't put any conditions. You don't impose any conditions. If you give me this, I will give you that. No exchange. Okay? No trade. True devotee means he doesn't grumble. Whatever I have actually, whatever I need, Lord knows. I don't ask for anything. That's all. Love for the sake of love. Love for the sake of love. That's all. No exchange business. Now if you give me this and I will give you that. Okay, I will give you in return this. No such conditions are imposed. Love for the sake of love. And that is actually real bhakti. And for such devotees, actually, Lord will become their slave. That's why I am saying, actually, Lord has put us in bondage. We are in this world. We are all bound. We know that. But you can even bind God, actually. You can create bondage for the Lord through your devotion. He will protect you all the time. He will become your slave. That's the beauty, that's the privilege that God has given to all of us human beings. That's why love of God actually is the highest thing that we can aspire for. That is a real wealth and true wealth. A devotee who has that devotion for God, he doesn't care for any other wealth. He is fulfilled. He or she is totally fulfilled. I don't need anything else. I have love for God. Lord is dwelling in my heart. What more I need? The universe is in me. The devotee even doesn't consider that also. Sri Ramakrishna says, devotee is never conscious of the powers of the Lord. Lord is omnipotent, he is all powerful. But he will not say, "Oh Lord, you have created this mighty universe, how powerful you are." Nothing of that sort he will say. He is not even conscious of the powers of the Lord. A Jnani sometimes becomes conscious of the power of the Lord because you see how much creation he has done. Definitely he must be supremely powerful. A small being, a tiny being cannot do that. It requires great strength, it requires great intelligence, it requires great energy to create a universe of this magnitude. But a devotee will never become conscious of the powers of the Lord. You just see the Yashoda, for example, the devotee of Krishna. And she was trying to tie Krishna to that mortar, right? Because Krishna became very, very mischievous. Okay? Very mischievous child. The gopis would go and other mothers would go and complain constantly against his child. One day she was fed up. This boy actually doesn't sit at one particular place. Something he will do mischievous and bring trouble to others and also to me ultimately in the end. So she was totally exhausted, unable to control this child Krishna and little Krishna. And she wanted to tie him to a mortar. She became so annoyed that day and she brought a small rope to tie him. And she tried and tried and tried. Every time she tried, actually, she added some more rope, actually, but 2 inches it would fall short to tie him. Krishna was doing a miracle. And ultimately, at the end, she saw the Yashoda became, actually, she was perspiring. She was sweating profusely, unable to bind him, unable to tie him to that mortar. And then the Lord took pity on his mother. And she said, "Oh, enough." So he allowed himself to be bound. Unless the Lord allows you, okay, you cannot really bind him because he is the freedom, he is infinite, right? How you can bind the infinite? So he allowed, there in Telugu Bhagavata, that beautiful where the Lord, the Saint Potana says, the adjectives used are very beautiful. I'll just tell it in Telugu and then I'll explain it in English also because in English talk here. బంధ విమోచనుడీశుడు బంధింపబెనంగు జనని పాటోర్చి సుహృద్బంధుడుగావున జననీ బంధంబున కట్టువడియే పాటించి నృపా. So we are in bondage. To make ourselves free, to come out of this bondage, we pray to the divine, right? That's why it is bandha vimochana, who liberates us from bondage. One of the adjectives that we can give to the Lord is bandha vimochana. To help us come out of this bondage of life and death, we pray to the divine. He is bandha vimochana. Bandha vimochanudu, Ishudu, the Lord. Isha means the Lord. Bandhimpa benangu janani patorchi, unable to see his mother, who was trying to tie him to that mortar. Suhrud bandhudu gavana, because actually he is the friend of devotees. He is a lover of devotees. Suhrud bandhudu gavana, janani bandhambuna kattuvadiye. That Lord who is free, who cannot be bound by any means, he allowed himself to be bound by this motherly love. And that's why he allowed Yashoda actually to bind him to that mortar. Otherwise, who can tie him? Who can tie the infinite? Who can tie Krishna? Is it possible, do you think? That's how actually you can enslave God. With the power of your love in your heart, you can make God your slave. He has actually put us in bondage. We also should try to put him in bondage. Okay, it's possible. That is actually the miracle of love. That's the miracle of devotion. It has to be cultivated. To cultivate that devotion, actually, the thing that you can do is read the stories of bhaktas. You read again and again, again and again. Don't just read once. Devotion will be kindled in your heart for sure. This is Bhagavatam is such a great text. You know actually who narrated Bhagavatam to whom? Shuka Maharshi narrated it to Parikshit, King Parikshit. Who is Shuka Maharshi? Is an Avaduta. Who is Shuka Maharshi? Is an Avaduta. He was the Yambhara. From birth actually he was an enlightened being. He did not meditate on Saguna Sakara. He did not cultivate bhakti. But that was, there was no need for him. He was so pure, immaculately pure. He did not need all this. He just directly his mind went into the absolute. Without the need and aid of any images, without the need of Saguna Sakara, a personal God, he had attained to the highest state of Brahman. That was the state of Shuka Maharshi. He would not stay at one particular place for more than 15 minutes. If you would stay at one particular place for 15 minutes, that place would become a place of pilgrimage. It would become sanctified to such an extent that would become a place of pilgrimage for generations together, for years together, for centuries together. That was the power of the holiness of Shuka, the son of Vyasa. That Shuka Maharshi narrates this to Parikshit. When actually Parikshit was cursed, when actually all the sages in the country, Bharatavarsha, they heard this. Galaxy of sages and they gathered there on the bank of, Ganges, where actually Parikshit goes to do this Prayo Pravesa. He wanted to give up his body. And they were asking, only I have 1 week life left in this world. What is the best thing I can do? Please help me. He was requesting all those sages. And so many sages were there. They all actually knew Bhagavata. They could have narrated Bhagavata. But nobody came forward. And everybody pointed out to Shuka Maharshi. Shuka Maharshi, they all knew that actually Brahmagyani, he is only Nirguna Nirakara Brahman he worshipped actually. That man, how he would narrate Bhagavata, a devotional text, the text of Dvaita in there is Bhakta and Bhagavan both are there. But for Shuka Maharshi, no Bhakta and Bhagavan, it is absolute, he is just merged in the absolute all the time. And that Shuka, he says actually, Parinishtito Pinairgunye Uttama Sloka Leelaya Gruhita Cheta Rajarshe Akhyanam Yadadhitavan. This sloka comes in the Srimad Bhagavatam. Parinishtitopi Nairgunye, though I am established Nirguna Nirakara Brahman, the formless Brahman, in the formless absolute, the supreme consciousness, the Shuka is telling this. Parinishtitopi Nairgunye Uttama Sloka Leelaya, but I developed a like for the sportive deeds of the Lord. So this absolute is giving me the highest bliss and joy, but there is something actually which gives me greater joy, but still actually I have fallen in love with the sportive deeds of the Lord. Uttama Sloka Leelaya Gurhita Cheta Rajarshe. For somebody who is established in the absolute, there won't be mind. Mind is almost dissolved. In case of Shuka Maharshi, the mind is only there for the namesake. Sri Ramakrishna used to say like burnt rope. Burnt rope, actually, there is no strength in it. Actually, you touch it, it will become powder. Like that, he doesn't have a mind, in fact, no tangible mind. The mind is almost merging into consciousness. Like Sri Ramakrishna, how he would go into Bhava Samadhi. Very frequently, very soon, in so many times in a day also he would go into Bhava Samadhi. That's why the mind is almost merging into superconscious. With great difficulty, they would keep the body. With like a small thread actually, with that help of the small thread of ego, small thread of a desire, they would actually hold themselves to this physical body. So in Shuka Maharshi's case also, the mind was like that. But he came down a step as it were. For what? Because he says actually, I have fallen in love with the sportive deeds of the Lord. And so I feel like narrating them. And who is the competent adhikari? Who is a fit person to receive, to hear this doctrine of devotion, the highest doctrine of devotion? And then he found Parikshit, because for whom actually only 1 week is left on this planet. 1 week is only his lifespan, because by 7th day actually he would be dead, because the Takshaka will go and bite him. There is no cure for that. So the sage cursed him, sage Shrungi. And Shrungi's curse actually would kill him. It was 1 week time, but it was sufficient for him. 1 week, Shuka Maharshi explained this great devotional text of Srimad Bhagavatam to Parikshit and could raise his mind to that superconsciousness level. At the end of 7 days, the Parikshit's mind was completely soaked with devotion for Krishna. So his consciousness, his mind is almost merged in superconsciousness. Krishna's consciousness. So this serpent Takshaka, he went and burnt only that empty body. That body is almost merged in God. So without having the need to take the body to a cremation ground to cremate it, that last rites also, there was no need. Because the Lord actually arranged for his devotee, the final actually rites also in such a way that just he sat and actually from a fruit actually, it's like a small worm. In the form of a worm, actually, Takshaka comes out and he bites Parikshit, the great king. And in front of so many people, he just got burned there and thus it became ash. That's all. He merged, his consciousness merged in Krishna. That's how actually he liberates. The Lord gives liberation to his beloved devotee, Parikshit. And that is actually the power and potency of Bhagavatam. But through 1 week listening only, he had attained to the superconsciousness. And we all will be able to attain highest devotion for God by reading the stories of these devotees mentioned in Srimad Bhagavatam and also so many saints and sages, that Bharatavarsha, the land of our great land has produced. So you have to read again and again these stories. And that is how actually you can help yourself in having devotion for the Lord. That is actually the highest reward, having come here as a human embodiment. And also having been born in a country like India, a spiritual land. If we human beings, if we don't cultivate devotion for God, we are living in vain. Okay, there is bhakti, all kinds of bhakti is there, but true bhakti, true devotion we need to cultivate. The bhakti actually is a privilege given to us. We need to understand that. Not an ordinary privilege, it's supreme wealth. See, once you have God with you, what more you need? Can there be anything higher than God? The owner of the universe is with you. Is it a small achievement, right? You don't need anything. You will not long for anything more once you have this. It is fulfilling in itself. Bhakti is. But should you need anything, actually, Lord will arrange and provide for you. Because the owner of the universe, the Lord of the universe, will be at your beck and call. That is the power of devotion. It's not an ordinary privilege given to us, the human beings. So, and also we know in our culture that Lord is not dwelling somewhere up in the sky. We know that actually He is dwelling in our own heart. Okay? And small story is there. Actually. Very, of course, it's not such a grand story. Lord actually, how He deceives us. Why we are not able to cultivate devotion when He is there so close to us. There was a businessman, he was traveling, a contemporary story. He was traveling to Delhi by train. When he had another co-passenger in front of him, he was carrying a lot of money in his bag. Yes, he was a businessman. He looked at the passenger sitting opposite to him. Then when he saw the person sitting opposite him opened his suitcase, and then he found a lot of keys, multiple keys with him. Then the businessman developed suspicion that he understood that this man must be a thief, probably. Then otherwise so many keys are necessary. So many duplicate keys he has. So sometimes, thieves, they don't come like thieves, they travel like gentlemen. So his co-passenger also was like that, but this businessman actually was shrewd enough to understand, to discern, and this man is truly a thief. My money is not safe. Okay, there's money in my bags, but that is not safe because this man might steal away my money when I go to bathroom or washroom. So, but you can't stop with a long journey, Delhi is 26 hours journey. So you'll have to go now and then to washroom. You don't know what he will do. So when the thief, when he went to washroom, so this passenger, this businessman, the wise man, he kept all his money under the pillow of the thief. Okay? Then afterwards he went to the washroom and normally he was conducting, and thief actually became restless. Where he might have hidden this wealth? Because thief also saw the wealth that he was carrying, the bags. The thief also was shrewd enough that this man is carrying a lot of money. But he could not get it. And the next day, when they were taking leave of each other, and then actually from his pillow actually he collected his money back, and the passenger was getting down, and the thief understood. So then he told, I know that you have that stealing instinct. I know for sure that actually you would have stolen my money, and that's the reason the safest place for money is your pillow. I know that actually you will search everywhere but not under your pillow. The same way, we will search for God everywhere in the world but not here. Okay? Lord actually is hiding within our own heart. That's the reason you need to turn inward. That requires great strength. That's all. This turning inward is nowhere there in any other culture. They don't even understand it. What actually God dwelling in your heart. So in this Pindanda, there is actually the Lord of Brahmanda. Only thing actually you have to have Him awakened in your heart. For that, devotion is the best means. And to cultivate devotion, what you need to do? You have to read the stories of devotees. So please try to be on this job as much as you can hereafter and cultivate devotion for God and earn this supreme wealth, the highest wealth and the greatest wealth that a human being can ever aspire for and can ever achieve. We shall stop here for today. We shall meditate just 2 minutes before we disperse. Om.